Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dragon Eclipse with Bored to Life. So, this will be the first episode of the third scenario, and before we go through the introduction of the scenario, I am going to go through the Mystlings I'm bringing currently, as well as all the things I have on me, we'll say. Also, I'm not able to fix this glare at the moment. However, the camera quality should be way better, both because this is a new camera and because I fixed some settings with the recording. So that should be better. Hopefully it is. Let me know. Anyway, we are still, once again, let's go through my equipment first, actually. So, I have 5 silver still, as well as the 1 essence we got from absorbing some form of that dragon's power in the one part of that second scenario. And then as to my items and equipment, oh yes, I'm getting confused because I see the extra thing. So this is actually a secret card, which is why I'm able to have a 5th one here. So essentially, we'll do the items first. I'm carrying a treat, which allows me to, during a test, add or subtract 3 from that test. I have an auguring bracelet, which during a test allows me to look at the top 4 item cards and put them back in any order. And then, since you're only allowed to carry 2 items, those are the only ones I have. As to equipment, I have a bag of powder, which functions as a rope. And then during combat, I can cleanse 4, which would remove status effects, but that would cost me the card. And then phosphorescent fungus, which doesn't have a set ability, but is treated as a treat, and a torch. I also have this pungent incense, which could have saved me during the one combat, but oh well, I forgot to use it. So this is the one-use secret card, where during combat, I can expend it, essentially, to move any Mystling up to 2 spaces, whether it's mine or an enemy. Okay. So those will go back in my little... Let's put them in front for now, and I'll remove them later. And then we'll go through our first Mystling, because I have redesigned these decks a little bit based around the cards I got at the end of the last scenario. Also, no one's seen me play Furple yet, because I just got him last scenario. So first we have Luminessa. Pretty soon we'll probably have an all Mystling models or just all miniatures video coming out now that I have a better camera. But it's not up yet, so I'm still showing these off. And I will continue to do so. So that's the Luminessa model. I will also potentially be painting these at some point. We still have a normal stat card. 0 willpower, 1 armor or defense, 24 health. This is the PvP side. Got flipped around. 0 willpower, 1 armor, 17 health, 3 attack, and 2 speed. Special ability of Fading Light. You deal 1 damage in any range for each brightness you have, and then you discard a brightness. That costs 4. We have the light element abilities, which are the standard, dash and prepare, as well as exchange, which is 1 power to deal a damage with pierce 2 in any range and gain a damage yourself. Got my combat quest of ending combat without any damage on me, as previously shown. Haven't managed to achieve it yet, but when I do, I'll have, I believe, the exalted version. So, for my 16 card deck for Luminessa, this scenario, we'll go through it. If I have duplicates, oh well. Hit and run, so you attack with -1 and then you move. Solar Flash, which is a new one. So you discard all cards to the left or right of this card, and you deal 2 damage to an opponent in range 2 for every card discarded. There's 2 of that. And then we have Malleable Light, which allows me to choose and resolve 2 different effects. So I can attack, I can deal 3 damage in any range, I can gain 3 power, or me or my ally can cleanse 2. That's another new one. And we have another new one, Deliberate Strike. So you attack, and then you attack again if you have at least 8 cards in your discard pile. And then we have Bask in Sunrays, which we've had since the start. Discard the top 3 cards of your deck, gain a brightness for each light card discarded this way, gain a power for each neutral card discarded this way. And then we have Searing Radiance, which we got, I believe, after the first scenario. And that's deal 3 damage in any range. If I'm fighting a dark, deal 3 damage in any range again. Another Bask in Sunrays. And then Brilliance, which is gain a brightness. You can spend 2 power to gain an additional brightness. And then you move and deal 2 damage in range 2. We have Focus, where you can move and then discard another card if you want to. Regeneration. which if it's in slot 3 lets you move +1. And then me or my ally in range 1 can heal 2. Then we have Guardian Stance, which is another starter. Gain a power, and then a passive effect while it's on the discard pile is +2 armor. Light Vortex. Gain a brightness. You can spend into power to gain an additional brightness and then attack in range 2. If you're fighting a dark, you can then gain another brightness. 2 of those, and then another brilliance. So that will be the deck of action cards or attack cards, or whatever you want to call them, for Young Luminessa. Now for Furple, who we actually fought last time, but now have on our team. We'll show the model here. He's like a little pineapple guy. Or something. Okay. So first, the actual Furple stats. 0 willpower, 1 defense, 20 health, 2 attack, and 2 speed. Now, with him being water, he's a bit faster. So his special abilities, which he actually has 2 of, is 1 power to do Splash, which gives your attacks Pierce 3 for the turn. Very useful if you're going against armored targets. Then we have Water Drain for 4 power. So in any range, you can interrupt 1 for each puddle within range 2 of the chosen opponent. For each card discarded this way, the opponent gains 1 damage. So interrupt discards cards from the enemy attack track. So it's essentially the equivalent of when we fought him being able to discard our power. Then we have the Water Element ability, which is the same standard 2 bonus actions, as well as the 4 power for Flow, which allows you to move the opponent by its movement and then heal 1. So we actually have the ability to move opponents. And then we have a story quest for Furple. So Furples have problems with controlling their emotions. The old encyclopedia you once read suggests letting these Mystlings meditate atop a snowy mountain. So we don't exactly know how that works, but we know that it does. And somewhere during the campaign, we will find that snowy mountain and let our Furple meditate. That sounds weird, actually. I don't like how that sounds. Oh well. And then we get to show off these fun water sleeves from the combat deck box. If you have that, you have these sleeves. Congratulations. But here's our Furple deck. So these are mostly going to be new cards except for the starter ones. So Wave Thrust will place a puddle in range 3, and then you can move, move, attack, move, move. Yes, there's 4 movements on this one card. Did I mention Furple's fast? That's a total of 8 spaces of movement, plus placing a puddle and attacking. Anyway. Oh, also Furple actually has more health than Young Luminessa, being at 20. This is going to be interesting, because I like fast characters. Anyway, place up to 2 puddles in range 3. Sorry, this is Plunge. Blink to any space with the puddle. And then if you're fighting fire, you deal 2. So, I mean, this is just kind of you can get behind walls or whatever too. But then again, if you have puddles really far away as well, you can teleport all the way across the board. So that could be useful. And then we have another Furple card, Reinvigorating Splash. Place up to 2 puddles in range 2, discard up to 3 puddles in range 3, and then you heal 2 for each puddle discarded this way. So it's just a good way to heal some health. Then we have a standard Primal Shock card from the starters, which deals 2 damage in range 2. Then we have a Plunge, which we've already gone over. We don't need to do that again. We have Synergy for the Trigger ability, which is just using another card, but you gain the power from this one instead, essentially. Heavy Strike, which we might have had in the Young Luminessa deck before, which is attack, and then you move an opponent in range 1 by up to 2 spaces. We have an Offensive Stance, which allows you to gain a power, and then the passive effect of +1 damage. We have Wave Thrust, which allows you to place a puddle in range 3, and then you move, move, attack, move, move, which we've gone over already. We also have the Water Elemental card, Tide of Variety. So you choose an opponent in any range, and then if they are in a drop space, that you heal 2 and search 2. If they are in an arc space, you deal them weak, silence, and slow. And if they're in a petal space, you deal them 4 damage. So it's just a little variety, hence the name. And then we have Pummel, which is just the standard attack card. Another reinvigorating splash for healing. A hit and run for attack -1 and move. Another Tide of Variety. And then Honed to Perfection, which is the new one. And actually our first little enhancement ability. So it's a move, but then as it gives you this bonus action basically until you reshuffle your deck. It just stays out to the side. And what it allows you to do is, for one, you can sharpen, which will give your attacks +1 that turn. And then we also have Smart Approach, which lets you move and then you place a card from your discard on top of your deck. So just a little way to get more cards back and recycle. We like recycling. Okay. So what I'm going to do is put these in their little spots to prepare for when we need them. And I'll pull up the book for the Aftershock campaign. Not campaign, scenario. Which is probably part of the title of this video. We'll see you when that happens. And here we go, the actual scenario. So just for the context here, we pull up our world map. This is located back at Caerburg over here, where we started, the C0 Aftershock scenario. So, let's read the introduction to Aftershock. So, it feels like a lifetime since you left Caerburg in search of the source of the tremors. Now the time has come to return and ensure the safety of the town and its folk, all so dear to you. Your mind often strays to these ominous beings who killed the Dragon Guardian. They have entered your world through that uncanny portal and may still be lurking unseen. You are determined to protect Caerburg at all costs. But there is a more pressing matter on your mind which you have kept secret from everybody. Since you met the dragon, you haven't been fully yourself. You are plagued by blurred, disturbing visions of islands floating in the air, terrible headaches always accompanying the sensation. You must learn more about these sights from your dreams. What significance do they hold for you? So our hints for this scenario are combat hints of you may encounter one of the previous enemies in a random combat, which we've been putting those cards aside for. And other hints are that water and fire Mystlings will be helpful. So fortunately, I have Furple with me. I don't have a fire Mystling yet, but if I did, it'd be helpful. Camera focus there. Okay. So, and then we can either choose to reconsider or start the scenario. I'm going to choose to start the scenario because I already have considered both options separately, and this seemed to be the better choice for me. So we will choose our 2 Mystlings, which we have done, and we will perform the deck construction, which we have already done. I do not have the time passes status, so I will not go to script C1. Therefore, I will go to script C2. Candidate number 1 for cover art. Oh, I also have to grab my little model for myself over here. Okay, so potential cover art for this video. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with C2 then. When you set off for the town, the moons separate and the sun finally rises. Your head is still full of images you cannot comprehend. The eclipse and all the gaps in reality, the dying Dragon Guardian and the ominous human-like creature were enough to baffle anybody. Still, it was only the beginning of the wonders. The body of the dead dragon began to transform rapidly until it became a low hill overgrown with grass, flowers, and trees. You wish you hadn't been in a hurry. You would have loved to explore it just to make sure you weren't hallucinating. The future of the town, however, seems more precious to you. As you head there, you cannot help noticing that a flock of Mystlings that witnessed the dragon's death decide to follow you. They are curious and impossible to chase away, which isn't good. A conglomeration of Mystlings of all sorts and tempers does not bode well. From afar, you can see that Caerburg suffered severely from the quake. The walls surrounding the city lie crumbling in many places. Fortunately, you already hear shouts of people organizing themselves to help each other. There are even more creatures amassed in front of the ruined gate. Your experience tells you that in such situations, trouble is a spark that catches stray kindling, so you are determined to challenge the most aggressive Mystling and thus show the others who is in charge here. The town needs no more problems, after all. Go to script C4, which is down here. You advance, Mystlings by your side. The aggressive creature shifts its focus directly to you. Set up a random combat. close the adventure journal, and start the combat. Okay, so I'm going to go through setup for that. I'm basically just shuffling the available cards, which are basically all the creatures we fought before, as well as the 2 starters. It would be quite funny if we just end up with a starter, because it's probably not the realistically most aggressive, but we'll see how it goes. And then I'm assuming that it's going to give me the terrain setup and everything too. So we will now cut to that, assuming I can figure that all out, which should happen. Okay, so now that combat has been set up, we'll go through just the general layout of how this is set up right now. So there are a couple cards you can't really fully see over here, but we've gone over those Luminessa cards already. I will go over the enemy stuff, as well as our terrain rules. So first of all, we are fighting on the freezing aberration area. So there is an ice wall right there in the center between us. I should go over who we're fighting first, actually. That's kind of important. So, we are actually fighting the young Iceling, who is one of the starter options. And the young Iceling model is right here. And then we've seen Luminessa already, so I won't show that one again. But essentially, stats, 0 willpower, 0 defense, 16 health, 4 attack, and 2 speed. As to its attacks, Circle will be dealing 2 damage with Drain in range 2. Square is cleansing weak and then dealing weak in any range, as well as a trigger. I will have to double check how trigger works in the case of enemies. And then triangle will be rush, attack with Pierce 1, and then if fighting a fire enemy, attack with Pierce 1. Special ability will deal 3 damage with Drain in range 1. As to taming it, I'm not going to pick up that card, but I will read it. Step 1, break the ice. It has to have 8 or less health left, which is just getting it down to half health essentially. Step 2, face its cold, which is end your turn within range 1 of it. And then tempt with a promise of good training, which is ending your turn with 10 power. Altogether, not that hard if I want to tame it. Also not that hard if I want to just defeat it. I'll finish going over the arena setup, and then I have to double check how trigger works in the case of enemies. Actually, I might say it. When the enemy triggers, resolve another enemy card. Okay, so we'll just be attacking again. So, we are fighting on the freezing aberration map, as I said before, but we'll go through it now. Oh, and then enemy special is on round 3, or attack 3. So freezing aberration will be at the start of your turn. If you're within range 1 of the ice wall, you will gain 1 weak, which will reduce my attack to 1. Fortunately, this is a Mystling that I'm fighting with that does not rely much on its attack, so that's not all that bad. Plus, at the end of your turn, you lose 1 of each condition marker anyway. I'll also show the ice wall mini. It is shown in the unboxing video, but this is probably a little bit higher quality. And we're seeing it now that it's happening. Plus, if you haven't watched that video, you wouldn't know. So, I think I got everything that I need to get before this combat to go through. I'll just go through my currently active action cards. We have Deliberate Strike, Bask in Sunrays, Searing Radiance, and Malleable Light. I have already gone through all of those previously, so I'm not going to worry about doing it again. So, for the starting of what I want to do, I will immediately gain 1 weak because I am within range 1 of the ice wall. So that's my weak token. I will continue to put them here instead of on the card because I think it's easier. So, let us begin. I'm going to actually, as much as it seems kind of contradictory, use... Oh, I need to put this deck the other direction because I'm supposed to see the next attack. So it will be a triangle, which will rush, attack with Pierce 1, and then attack with Pierce 1. Which means he will be reaching me so long as unless I can move like 2 or 3 away. So I'm going to go ahead and just maybe end up having to take that hit. But I'll start out with Malleable Light, so I gain 1 power to start because that's the slot that it's in. and then I'll choose and resolve 2 different effects. So the first one I will do is gain 3 power, which will bring me up to 4. And then me or an ally can cleanse 2, but I don't want to do that, so I will instead deal 3 damage in any range. So just straight up 3 damage. Hit him with a hammer. And that will get discarded. I can still do bonus actions. I have a movement of 2. I don't know if there's any way I can get... I know I can get out of range of the ice wall. I don't think there's any way I can get out of range of a rush and attack, though, which means it might actually not be practical to even try. I think it is practical to move, even if it won't get out of the way, so I will spend 1 power. I'll just put it over here. Or actually, we'll just put it over here. It's more convenient. 2, go ahead and do a move just to over here, so that I am a little bit farther away if I need to keep moving in the future. Or I should say it's easier to do so. Okay, so then I just end my turn by restocking that with another Searing Radiance, apparently. So, the enemy will now take their turn. So we will place the triangle, which will mean rush and attack with Pierce 1 in this case. So rush is 2, and then attack with Pierce 1 is going to bypass by 1 armor, dealing 4 damage, which is going to hurt. So that part's unfortunate, but what can I do, I guess? Not much, actually. And then I will continue to back to my turn. We'll flip this card face down because that's what we're supposed to do. And I'm going to go ahead and, knowing that that's a circle, I just need to get 2 away. So as long as I can spend 1 power on a movement, I can avoid that attack. This is where Furple would have been nice for the movement abilities. But I'm going to Bask in Sunrays. So I discard the top 3 of my deck. For each light, I'll gain a brightness, and for each other, I gain a power. Before I do that, I have to actually gain 2 power for the card. So I have 1 non-light card, therefore I gain 1 power from that. And I have 2 light cards, so I will gain 2 brightness from those. If I can grab the brightness, hopefully. So we get my brightness. And I need to charge up that brightness so that I can do my fading light ability. And then Bask in Sunrays will get discarded. We slide these down, and we refill this. Oh, I technically forgot this. We'll do it now, though, because it doesn't affect anything. At least nothing that would have changed. And I will do that to move 2 away for a dash action. Therefore, Young Iceling will now take their turn. This attack slides down. We do the circle activation, which will deal 2 with drain in any range. So, sorry, not in any range, in range 2. I was like, why did I move? Okay, so it can't reach me with range 2, and therefore does nothing. So now we reach my turn, and I can only do so much to actually prevent this, because essentially it's just going to deal weak to me. Also, I would have lost this weak, so that's not on me. So he'll be dealing weak to me in any range and then triggering. Now, I don't actually know what the next activation will be, but in theory, if there's a decent chance that it won't do anything if it's another circle. So we will see, I guess. So I just have to hope it's a circle, especially since the special ability won't do anything then either. So I'm going to go ahead and Searing Radiance. So I gain 2 power, bringing me up to 7. And I will deal 3 damage in any range, which means he will now be at a total of 7. That's not right, 6. So he has taken 6 damage, meaning he's at 10. I need to deal 2 more damage to him before the first taming requirement is complete. And then Is there anything else I want to do with this? I don't think so. Actually, I could deal the 2 damage right now. That might be the best way to take this. Okay. So I will actually use 4 power for a bonus action. Fading Light. So I deal 1 damage in any range for every brightness I have. That will deal 2 damage, bringing him up to 8 damage, which completes the first requirement of taming. So I have broken the ice. And then I have to end my turn within range 1 of him as the next requirement. So we'll refill this. Oh, and then I have to discard a brightness as well. And then it will become the young Iceling's turn. So we go ahead and we do this, which will deal a weak to me. And then trigger. And I'm going to assume that the special activation happens after the trigger, which is, if anything, worse for me. It is, in fact, a circle like I had hoped. So he can't deal any damage to me within range 2. And therefore, his 3 damage with Drain in range 1 will also do nothing from a special. So he has officially done nothing with that turn, which is kind of good. I say kind of because now I have to move to him, which could be a little trickier. So right now I just need power, assuming I want to actually tame him. So the best way for me to get power would be using Deliberate Strike, but that's also kind of a waste. To triangle next, which will rush attack with me. That's actually a tricky decision, because I essentially need to get close to him and then have 10 power. I'm going to go ahead and use Deliberate Strike, more so just to actually get the power more than anything else, because that brings me up to 6. Because it's not actually going to damage him at all. And then we'll just save him the effort of coming towards me by going ahead and using 1 to dash. I think I'm actually going to dash to that side. And then, therefore, I will end my turn, moving those down, placing regeneration right there, and then completing Face It's Cold, which I am about to do, I think, because now the young Iceling will get to fight back with the triangle attack, so he'll rush and attack. He doesn't actually need to rush, he just gets to attack, and that will deal another 4 damage to me, which means I will be at 8 as well. And then it will go back to my turn, and I don't particularly want to deal damage right now, but knowing that that's a circle and I can get away from him, I would have lost that. Tempting to do Brilliance. I don't actually need the brightness, though. More than anything, I just need to move out of the way of the attacks. So I think I'll take Hit and Run, which will deal a little bit of damage, a little bit being 2. Actually, that brings him up to 10 total, so that would be an easier way to mark it. As long as I don't completely remove his health. So we'll do that, and then I get to move, which will move me 2 away. And this ice wall thing only applies at the start of my turn. So I also would gain the 2 power from taking the thing in that spot. The hit and run card. And I am now at 7. However, I need to get a little bit farther away, so I'm going to go down to 6 to move with a dash so that I don't get hit by the attack. And next turn, I should be 1 away. Unless I can get, if I draw something correctly, I might be able to actually get more. So, let's go ahead and end the turn here. Solar Flash. That would be a fun card, because that would deal 6 damage, but I don't need to do 6 damage. Okay. Enemy turn. That attack card gets moved down to the discard. And then we do a circle attack, which will deal 2 in the range 2 with Drain. That will miss. He's not very fast for being a water, but I suppose he's more of an ice. Nice to meet you. Okay. Anyway, I now get my turn again, and I just had to tempt it with a promise of good training, which will require me to get 4. I'll be 1 away. The good news is it's very unlikely that's going to deal any damage to me with where he is. So I'll go ahead and use Searing Radiance, mainly for the 3 power, which puts me 1 away from having enough. So I'll just need 1 more power next turn. And then it will also deal 3 damage in any range, which brings him down to 3 health remaining, because he's at 13 damage. Of course, I don't want to actually deal that damage, because I'd rather tame him at this point. If I was trying to just defeat him, I would have done so already. Very dramatic phrase. Anyway, we will now go to the Iceling turn, which is a square. So that's going to give me weak, and then trigger, which will do a triangle. So that will be a rush and attack with Pierce 1. So rush, and the attack won't be able to reach me because he's 2 away. So it's just the rush. And then it goes to my turn. And I can actually finish this off because, and this is actually a really convenient placement, I will use my regeneration card. Since it's in slot 3, I can move +1, so I can just run all the way over here. And be like, hey, I don't want to fight you anymore. First of all, I'd get to heal too, which is nice because I'm not otherwise going to heal in this combat. And then I also gain 2 power, but I only gain 1 because there's a max of 10. And then by ending my turn at this point, technically I still have to move these, I would now complete the final taming objective, which will be tempting it with the promise of good training. And I don't remember if there's stuff in the back of this card. There is. That's one of the Mystling encyclopedia cards. So, essentially, I've managed to tame the young Iceling, and it tells me the cards I'll need for that. But we are going to script 200 of our current scenario for that, which is probably a couple pages in advance, because I have gotten to the end of combat, and that's where it says to go. So script 200 of C, that will be 1 moment. No. Oh, it goes from 102 to 200. How surprising. So it's essentially going to be the end of... Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost better not to tame sometimes. Here's what I'll do. I'll go through this after the cleanup. So let's do a little cut to cleanup. Okay, so now we have done the post-combat steps. I'll just go through them again real quick. Basically, each of our Mystlings would heal up to half their health, which I did not do, being that I did not take half my health in damage yet. And then in the case of a tame, which is what we did, we took the tier cards from, or the cards listed on the tier card, which would have been the action cards, the Mystling card, and their like quests and such, and put them behind our party. So we've added them to our party, that being young Iceling. And then we have added the young Iceling to the Mystling encyclopedia. right there. Pause that and read the text if you want to. And then we have returned the enemy tier card to the tier cards deck and placed the enemy ability card behind the remove divider. So we will now be going to the next script. I would also like to mention, as I kind of did before, that in the case of winning or losing otherwise, you actually would gain essence. So essence could then be used to tame without having to fight. So it could actually be worth actually winning and not trying to tame in some cases, if you don't really want that Mystling. But in this case, I kind of did want more Mystlings because I don't have all that many right now. It would be nice to have a different element though. Anyway, we now go to script C72. So let me properly open up this book. And don't worry, I will be adjusting it so it actually shows up in the right spot for the camera, so you can read these scripts with me. So, and I'm just continuing to place the party marker on there, or whatever the tamer is called. So you have defeated the most aggressive Mystling, which, so funny enough, was a young Iceling, which is a clear message for all the others. The Mystlings move away to a safe distance, and other warlike ones flee. So we clear the arena, which we did, and then we gain 2 items and go to script C10. So if I actually want to gain these items here, I will have to discard other items, but we're going to gain 2, which gives me rope. So I could expend this on a test, camera wants to focus, to add or subtract 2, or a leather pouch, which would immediately give me a silver. So let's compare those to the other ones I already have. That being, in this case, the treat, which adds or subtracts 3 from a test, and the auguring bracelet, which lets me look at the top 4 cards, or item cards, and place them back in any order during a test. I'm going to say that that's going to be better than the rope, so I'm not going to take the rope. However, I will take the leather pouch, since I can just use it immediately, and therefore I don't have to expend anything. So I'll get rid of the leather pouch, and that simply gives me 1 silver. So I'll add that to my little pocket of, or little tray spot where I keep my essence and silver and all that. And then we go to script C10. So script C10. Having dealt with the wild creature from the forest, you enter the city through a damaged gate. People within carry the wounded on makeshift stretchers. Many buildings are in disrepair, some crumbled and others even leveled. At first glance, the town is in ruin, but as you look closer, you begin to believe that it's possible to rebuild, although not without extreme effort. So we open up map 4, which I will do in a moment, because we are gaining some statuses. Actually, I don't happen to have anything to write with right now, so I'll be right back here. Now that I have something to write with, we can do this step. So, if I don't have the local hero part 2, we will get the local hero part 2, which will be right here. So I've gained that. And then, if I have it, I would place a token in slot 1. If I have the time passes, something happens. I don't have the time passes status. And then I will basically be placing the secret card face down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little exploration map setup, and I will cut to that. So we'll be right back. Okay, so back with that setup. And I would like to mention I was not actually supposed to gain the local hero part 2 status. I read that wrong somehow. So I have now removed that status and placed the appropriate B token on slot 1, not slot A. And then we are instructed to go to script C21. And I know the scripts are off camera right now, but I will still read them and go through it. So, the sight of the ruined city brings tears to your eyes. The machines are broken. Several people shamble through the streets, their gazes wandering in disbelief. You approach a man with a twisted ankle and support him. A part of the city hall collapsed, Tamer, he said, staring into your eyes. The Duchess was wounded. How could you allow that? Where were you when we needed your assistance? You don't answer, reminding yourself that this man raves in pain. You help him arrive at the makeshift infirmary and ask a nurse about the situation in the city. It's bad, she replies. Guards are occupied at the collapsed city hall. rangers run around almost aimlessly, and your tamers are exhausted from trying to overcome the Mystlings' growing panic. We need you. Help the people of Caerburg with your companions. You could do more than most of us. So there's a note saying, try helping the city. Gather as many parts of the city in ruin status as possible. So 1 is some of the machines need repairs. 2 is people in the infirmary need aid. 3, some people may be in immediate danger. And 4, maybe you can convince the wild Mystlings to help the city. Begin the exploration. So we have some different areas on the map here. I would like to try to convince the wild Mystlings to help, but I'm not entirely sure which spot they're at. I'm gonna say we'll go over to C59 here just to see if that's an exit or if that's where they would be. Otherwise, we'll try C12. So that would be, this street leads towards the center of Caerburg where the city hall is. So we could leave this part of town, but we won't be able to return here, or we have more things to do. So I'm going to guess that that's where the wild Mystlings are. Therefore, let's just go to C31 at the infirmary. Oh, one more page. Okay. The tent covers a makeshift infirmary. All those who have been injured in the earthquake are brought here and cared for by Olin and good-hearted volunteers. So, since token B is in slot 1, we'll go to script C34 and see the art on the next page. So, what I will do is I will show off the art. So that's our little picture to look at during this script. It's script C34. So, there are many injured people in the infirmary, tended by a few hard-working volunteers. You recognize familiar faces among the patients, Alvin and Hazel. Both seem to be sleeping or unconscious. Gaidon, the boy's Mystling, is sitting in front of at the foot of his bed. You also spot Olin in the corner, busy preparing potions. He is pale and looks exhausted. The recent events must have taken a heavy toll on him. So we're choosing one. We can either speak with Olin if we don't have City in Ruin Part 2. We can heal your Mystlings for 2 silver, and then you heal 3. You can help the wounded, which would take time and gain a fatigue, but then you gain 2 silver. Or we could leave. I don't really want to. It sounds bad. I don't want to help the wounded, mainly for the cause of the action. I do want to help the wounded. That's my goal, but I don't want to do that action because I don't need to use up time for the purpose of gaining silver when I already have a lot of silver. So, and I don't really think it's worth healing my Mystlings when it's only 3 for that cost. So I will speak to Olin, and I will go to script C38. So, the earthquake destroyed my workshop, and none of my concoctions have survived, Olin confesses. I am hastily trying to cook up some more, but it's not that easy. What's worse, most of my creatures have fled too, and a few of them possess healing powers. We are left with what we have, and that is not a lot. So, if I have a water Mystling, I can let them help, which would give them fatigue, but then we go to script C20. I can give them a potion if I have the potion, but I don't have the potion. Or I could just help him, but that would cause time to pass twice. That's actually kind of tricky. I think I'm going to let my water Mystling help, because I'm currently bringing Furple with me, who is water. And that will give him a fatigue, so I will be adding 1 fatigue card to his deck. I will go do that, and we'll be right back here, because that takes me a moment. Okay, so Furple has now gained a fatigue, so we can go to script C20. Just a couple pages over, apparently. Your Mystling aids the nurse with fresh cold water as they change bandages and clean wounds. We gain the City in Ruin Part 2. The infirmary has less work thanks to you. City in Ruin would be C, so we get Part 2 of that. Okay. and then we will continue the exploration. So we've done that. Let's then go over to C50 over here, because that is probably the broken machines. Turn too far. Okay. So if we have the city in ruin part 4, we've already solved this problem, but otherwise we're continuing. So Mystlings wander the streets of the city, visibly anxious. They seem to have no agenda here, and most may decide to leave at any minute. But it occurs to you that they may sacrifice a bit of time together with the other tamers, persuade some creatures to help with repairing Caerburg. So we can try our luck with the Mystlings, which will take time, or leave. I'm going to try our luck with the Mystlings, so that will use some time. But we go to script C78. So C78 is a test. So the test will end immediately if we get 2 of the, whatever the unfortunate, like, little eye symbols. Forgot what they're called. And then we resolve that outcome. And then once per test, we have empathy part 2. We can add 1. And if token A is in slot 3, which it's not, we can ignore 1 of the bad results. Okay, so what we ideally want is a 7, 8, or 9. So I will remind myself that I have, I think, 2 items. Yeah, 2 items that would be useful for this. I'm just going to set those under here. I'll do the actual test on the board here. And 1 would let me add or subtract 3. 1 would let me look at the top 4 item cards. Both of those could probably guarantee that I would complete the test. Now, I would say it's safe enough to say that it's okay to draw the 1 card for this test. I just have the deck over here. I will draw. Or I'll just put it on here, actually. So, we'll begin the test. 1 card. That's a 1. We'll go 2. So we're at a value of 3 right now. I'm going to go ahead and use my auguring bracelet to look at the top 4 cards of the deck, because I already have 1 eye symbol and I don't want to get 2. So this will be expended. And then we have some very nice cards here. So I think 7, yeah, so 9 is the best possible result, which means I'm going to go ahead and place the lucky coin on top, followed by herbs. I think, yeah, because that would add up to 9. And then the other 2 are just up below that. So I will then reveal the lucky coin, which brings me up to 6, and the herbs. Sorry, not 6, it brings me up to 7, and then the herbs, which brings me up to 9. So, now having 9, I will get the best possible result on this test, and we'll add the auguring bracelet back to the item deck now that I have consumed it. Not like eating, either. Just like used. Okay. So, you feel a sudden strong connection with the Mystlings. It is unnerving, yet empowering. I wonder if that's related to the dragon absorption thing that we did. So, anyway, we can actually remove fatigue, which I will do when I get a chance, because I have one now. And then we gain an essence, which is nice. So we have gained an essence here. And then we gain the City in Ruin Part 4 status and continue the exploration. So we go back over here. Let's go C47, which is some form of like collapsed house or something. The jagged ruins are a sad reminder of Hazel's shop, once well stocked and bustling with trade. She is nowhere around, so she may have gotten injured. You can try and look for her in the infirmary. So we could search the rubble, which would take time. We could follow Hazel's hints, which requires a token A in slot 2, which we don't have, or we can leave. So I'm going to say let's search the rubble, maybe we'll find something useful. That will cost me a time, so I'll have to reveal that event card afterwards. But we go to script C54. And C54 is another test. And I'm actually not sure. I'm going to say the secret card probably gets revealed before the test. So wherever you go, you hear rumors of the collapse of City Hall. So we go to script C3. Actually, I will do that after then, just because it's going to another script. So at the end of the test, if we have at least 2 of the bad symbols, we will advance the time. And then if we have an Earth Mystling with us, we can ignore one of those. And we want a 6 or a 7. 7 being better. But they're actually not that different, apparently. So, shuffle up the item deck. Since I'm not going to probably be using any of mine, we'll do this. So first we start with fireworks, which is 3. We then go to 4 with herbs. And then we go to 6 with herbs again. And we'll just take that. So 6. And that results in there are some valuables among the debris. So we can gain an item or a silver. In this case, knowing how plentiful items tend to be, I'm going to take the silver because I never know when I'm going to actually need more silver. So I'll add that to my collection. And then I continue the exploration. I'm not sure if that was worth the time it took, but we've done it, so now it's too late. And then we're going to script C3 for the time passes. So if I had the time passes status, I would go to a different script, but since I don't, you wonder which problem to tackle first when 2 people approach, interrupting your thoughts. The library is in flames, one shouts. The fire spreads from the ruins of Hazel's shop, the other says. You spot another thick plume of dark smoke against the blue of the sky. You falter, unsure what to do. The library is more important, but there must be people helping already. The fire in the ruins is probably spreading as well, but it's also less dangerous. So we discard the secret we just revealed, which is secret 24, and we get secret 26 instead. So let's do that real quick. And that will go face down there, I'm guessing. Yep, it does. And then this will go in slot 4, but now it's red. So we have to hurry up and actually complete that. So you don't really have much time. You'd better hurry or your time runs out before you solve any of your problems. So we gain secrets 28 and 29. I'm curious as to what those are that we're just gaining something right now. I wonder if they're overlays. I'm going to guess they are. They are overlays. So let's do 28. This direction. The overlays with slot 2. If I can line it up, there we go. So Hazel's shop is on fire. And then this overlays with this little bench out front. That, I believe that's the library. Wait, how does that? There we go. So I can choose to either help the people by the library or fight the fire at the ruins of Hazel's shop. Well, I was just at Hazel's shop and she's not there, so I'm not too concerned about that. And I'm going to go to the library instead. So C8. So we're doing a test. If we have a fire mistling, we can ignore the hazard effect. And if we have a water mistling, which we do, we ignore all damage. Which is good, because I don't really want to take damage. And at the end of the test, if I have at least 2 of the bad symbols, we will move the time. So we want a 7 or 8 this time. Ideally an 8 because, well, actually there's not going to be a difference from, well, there is because there's 2 different scripts. So we want a 8 if we can. 1, 3, 5. I can count. 5, 6, 7, 8. The bottle of magic. Okay. So we got an 8. Now we did have at least 2 of the bad symbols, so we will have to advance the time, but that does total up to 8. So we will not have to deal with any of the bad results. So you quickly deal with a fire and had time to approach the other one as well. So script C95. Maybe. Okay, C95. You've dealt with the fire so efficiently, you still have time to try to save the second location. You run through the streets leading a group of volunteers. Together, you manage to quench the second fire before it spreads. If you were any slower... ... So we discard both secret cards from the map. Let me put B back over here. We'll put those back in the deck later. And then continue the exploration. So, that's been dealt with. Which means we kind of just have these 2 buildings left. So let's do C37. I wasn't looking for secrets either. There could be secrets here. But actually, I'm not seeing any on this one. Yeah, I don't think there's any noticeable ones in this section. So we'll do C37. So if any token is in slot 4, we would skip this essentially. But otherwise, the malfunctioning underground pipe system eventually burst, and a huge crevice attempted to swallow the basement of the shaded tavern. You stand over the edge of it, shocked and awed, and look at the twin sons of tavern keepers, hectically attempting to fix the damage. You ask them if they need a hand. Maybe one of the brothers smooths his famously rich mustache. The system is probably beyond repair, but we plan to salvage what we can. The supplies are underwater, says the other one, picking at his mustache, as impressive as his brother's. What should we do, brother? We advance the time, and then we choose one. One of them should dive to recover the lost goods, which is one choice. We could advise against going into the cellar, because it's too dangerous. Or we could send our Mystling to help. Which seems to be the best option to me, especially since I have a water Mystling, so I won't gain the fatigue. So, your companion dives and returns with some goods. The brothers focus on repairing further damage. And then I won't gain a fatigue, but I do gain an item and a silver. So, silver. And then random item. Red berries. Actually, I didn't shuffle that after the last thing. I don't have a problem with red berries, I just need to actually shuffle the item deck. Herbs. Okay. So at any time, we could do that to heal 2. So add that back to my items. And then we will place token A in slot 4, if I can get a token A here. Slot 4. And then we'll go ahead and continue the exploration. So the only place that I think we haven't gone to is C12, which I want to say, no, because this is the lab place. I don't actually know what building this is. That's B. So C12. There we go. If we have City in Ruin Part 1, did I not get a City in Ruin from that? I didn't. Interesting. So if I have Part 1, I think Part 3 is probably the Town Hall. We've already tried to repair the machine. Continue the exploration. So otherwise we read on. No hope, the engineer says. I can't fix it. The machinery will run wild any minute now. We desperately need these water creatures to control the pressure. Without them, the pipes may burst. You offer your help, and the engineer ponders for a few moments. The only way to alleviate the situation is to fix the valve. I tried it myself, but without effect. It's rusted because of our negligence and our blind reliance on the creatures. Maybe it'll work with you, though. Well, no harm in trying. So I can either try to fix it, which will advance time and we go to a script, which is likely a test, or I can scavenge my surroundings, which could potentially give me something that would help with the repairs. It says it's going to advance time and give 2 items. I don't really need 2 items right now, so I'm going to try to fix the valve. Advancing the time. We are definitely cutting that time close. And then continue the exploration. No, C15, which is in fact the test. So, at the end of the test, if we have token A in slot 4, which we do, we'll ignore the danger effect, because apparently fiddling with a flooded tavern lessened the pressure in the pipe network. At the end of so we'll skip the at the end of the test effect. And then if I have machinery or tools items or whatever, which I do not, I have everything but that actually. Once per test, I can discard all the cards I've already drawn. Or if I have Fire Mistling once per test, I can add one. I don't have either of those things. So we just have to hope for the best. I want a 6 or a 7 this time. So honestly, I don't really care which one in this case, because the only difference is I gain an item if I get a 7. So, 1, 4. Well, that's not great. That's the Coin of Misfortune. So, interesting. Okay. So, I went over, and therefore I have wasted a lot of time and energy. So I can either spend a tools item, which I do not have, or gain a fatigue and 2 damage, but then continue the exploration. Now, by continuing, I will have to gain a fatigue and 2 damage, first of all. So I haven't removed the fatigue from the deck yet. I'll just put it back, essentially. And I gain 2 damage, which I will probably place on Luminessa. Or because Luminessa has more health? No, less health. I'll probably place it on Furple, actually, just for balance. I don't know how many combats there'll be. Probably not more than one more, but I'm guessing there'll be at least that one. Okay, and then I'll go through that same script setup and do that test again. So, oh, I can't, if I do the test, I don't, that's annoying. I can't do the test again because I'll run out of time. However, it only uses 1 time to do the test, so that would be my last time. So if I fail it again, I won't get another chance because the time is advanced. Okay. So let's try that test again and just hope we don't have that issue. So, hobnails, 2, 3, 6. I'll take it, and I still get to avoid the bad symbols. Let's shuffle this right away so I don't forget. Anyway, the machine works once again. So we go to script C16, which is right below, and the machinery screeches and grates, letting out occasional clouds of steam, but after a moment of struggle, it begins to work properly. You sigh with relief. So we gain part 1 of the city in ruin, which means I just have to get part 3, which I'm guessing is the town hall. And then we place token A in slot 5, which is over here, and continue the exploration, which we probably won't be doing because we have to reveal this. You did what you could to help Caerburg, struck by the powerful quake, but it's time to pursue even more important matters. That didn't adjust. There we go. So we go to script C61. You can't tell how much time has passed since you started wandering around the city trying to help those in need. You are exhausted. So we discard Secret 26. And then we go to script 62. So if I have at least 3 parts, I have 4. I can go to script 60. Sorry, I do have 3. I can't count. Several citizens meet you by the infirmary and offer you a small package. For your help, a woman with a bandage around her head says, your hard work showed us that there's hope. We will prevail and rebuild our homes. So we gain 2 items. I already shuffled these this time. So we have herbs and red berries. So let's look at what I have currently. I think what I'll do, because I currently have an herbs, is I'll use the herbs I currently have to replace with the red berries. And then I'll also use the herbs that are drawn here to essentially just gain 4 health, divided however. So that will allow me to take 2 off of Purple and 2 off of Luminessa. I can find Luminessa's at 6. It's kind of annoying to deal with, but I will. So just a second here. Okay. So now we can put those items back. And we continue. So if we have Local Hero Part 3, which I do not, or sorry, gain Local Hero Part 3, wherever that is, L should be a liar. Local Hero Part 3. Okay. And then, if we have all 4 parts of City in Ruin, we gain 3 silver, which I do not. I'm missing 1. So C65, if token B is in slot 4, which it's not, token A is in slot 4, we go to C70. So otherwise we read on. If I have secret 27, I use it immediately. I do not have secret 27. And then we discard the secret from the event slot, if there is one, and end the exploration, going to script C64. So I will cut to after this all is cleaned up, and we'll have the scripts book back directly in front. Okay, so back to the script book. Your work for the city is over, and now it's time to locate the places glimpsed in your vision. You feel that this way you will both secure the future of Caerburg and shed some light on what happened to you when the dragon died. You head to the center of the town to talk to the Duchess, who should be the first one to know what you have been through. There's also a fair chance that she might know where all those mysterious lands are. There are no new emergencies in the infirmary, and all patients are taken care of, so Olin decides to join you. After all, he has some more errands to run too. You enter the part of the city you haven't seen for a long time. You stop and look around in amazement. There is a surprisingly quiet smithy there, and a tempting tavern you would want to visit if there was time. But first of all, there's a city hall with crowds of people and guards milling around. You also spot a small group of tamers conversing near the florist. You could have a word with them too, if there was time. So we're opening map 5, placing the secret down in the event slot, and basically setting that up. Now, I think that that is a great place to cut for the next episode. Thank you for watching today, and we'll see you next time.